We all face this problem in our lives. We all want to fit in. We all want to make friends. We all desire to feel safe and seen and heard, but a lot of times it's easier said than done, especially if you prefer being quiet. Maybe just in general, you just struggle with building relationships. And maybe it's been a long time since you've had to make new friends and you're about to go into an environment where you don't know anyone and you could use a little refresher. That's what today's video is all about. Hey, what's going on? If you're new here, my name is Blake and I help real people like you improve their social skills with real advice, not just theory. If you're into that, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. This is my ultimate guide for friendships. And if you'd like to download this guide for yourself so it's always with you and you can always go back and review it anytime you want, just post a comment and let me know and I can get it to you. Here are the chapters for today's video. It's going to be broken up into 3 different parts, right? Foundations of friendships, starting conversations and navigating groups, and then deepening and sustaining those friendships. All right, so starting off, with every new person that you meet, we all want the same thing, right? Everyone you talk to wants to fit in. And when you understand that everyone around you also wants to be liked and be included and be understood, you'll start to approach social situations with way more confidence, way more empathy, and way more likability. However, one of the biggest hurdles that get in the way of making friends is we tend to focus too much on how we are being perceived by others, right? You focus too much on how you are doing and what they think of you, right? And so a good sign that you do this is and that you struggle with this is if you have a really loud inner critic, right? Like there's a voice in your head telling you like, oh man, you need to say this. Or no, don't say that. Like, oh my gosh, why did you say that? Oh man, now you're not talking enough. Oh my God, now you're talking too much. And they all hate you, right? I mean, it's awful. So I want to encourage you to take all of that energy that's focused on yourself and criticizing yourself and fixing yourself, right? And I want you to channel it into listening to other people, right? And when you listen, I don't want you to just like sit there, and do nothing and just kind of dart your eyes out of the room, right? There's some practical things that you can do while you're listening to someone to really show them that you're listening, right? So maintaining eye contact, kind of an obvious one, but like, how about this? Like nod while they speak, right? Give a little like, yeah. Wow, really? Okay. I want you to do it in a way that it's as if it was you going through whatever it is that they were talking about, right? I want you to meet them where they are emotionally. Now, this is a lot easier done when the person you're talking to is talking about something that has a stronger emotion behind it. So if they're saying something like, yeah, man, my grandma died last week, you wouldn't sit there and be like, oh, that's too bad, because then they'll continue. They'll say, yeah, man, like it really sucks. You wouldn't sit there and go, yeah, I bet. Like, no, right? I want to encourage you to just like show a little bit more emotion, right? Show some empathy. I want you to try saying it like this. Oh my gosh, your grandma died? I am so sorry. What happened? Right? That will make a huge difference. And the reason this is important and this works when it comes to building friendships is because when people feel seen and understood and their emotions feel seen and understood, you make them feel valuable, right? You make them feel like their feelings are important to you. And when you have that mutual sense of understanding, when both of you are on that same level, can get on that same level emotionally, that's where friendship can really grow, right? Friendship grows rapidly out of shared experiences, okay? So the quicker that you can identify something that you share, the faster that the connection will develop. At work or at school, you could ask them, hey, how are you feeling about this class so far? Maybe you're in a new environment. What food do you want to try here? Those are just some questions and that you could ask. And based on their responses, you meet them where they are emotionally, right? And you see if you notice any overlap in the things that they say that you also have in common with, right? So maybe you're feeling the same way about the project, or, you're feeling the same way about the class that you're taking, Maybe you guys were going to order the same meal, right? Maybe you have the same hobbies, right? Or a little something about the hobby that they mentioned. Maybe you have like a friend that is also into that hobby. And you never want to lie about these things, obviously, right? It's very important to stay true to yourself and be true to who you are with the things that you actually do like and the things that you actually don't like. You can be confident in having a disagreement without being rude. That's the most important part. You don't have to agree. Just focus on the fact that you hear them. And this can be done, of course, in one-on-one situations, but also in group settings. Every group sort of has like a social, tone, right? How loudly everyone talks, how formally they dress. If the group is relaxed, right, and they're casual, they're wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts, and they're very chill, that's a sign that you don't have to over formalize. And if the group is professional, right, they're real focused on what they're doing, you may want to avoid being overly silly, right? So maybe just adjust your body language to match others, lean in when other people are leaning in, and when they speak, like, pay attention so you can speak at a similar pace. And I want to make it clear though, like this is not about pretending to be someone else, right? If the group is wearing, sweatpants and sweatshirts, but you want to wear a suit, by all means, like, wear a suit, but maybe consider wearing one that feels a little more casual. Like, I assume we all wear loungewear, right? Like at some point. So what would that look like for you? It's not about changing who you are, but just sort of adjusting the volume of who you are so it fits the environment that you're in. Okay, let's move on to part 2, starting conversations and navigating group settings, right? Let's dive into a little bit more about the practical methods for starting conversations. I want to encourage you to use your environment as a tool, right? Most conversations fail because they feel forced. They sort of feel like they're inauthentic. And so the easiest way to start a conversation naturally is to comment or ask a question on something that you both are currently experiencing. So some practical examples of this, right? If you are at work, right? Or if you are at school, man, that deadline came up quick, right? How's it been going for you? Or if you're at a party or an event or something, you could say, oh, wow, pretty good turnout. How did you get involved with the group here? Maybe you're in a public social setting, right? You just some random person, you say, hey, that's a cool jacket. Where'd you get it? They work because you're asking the person about something that is relevant to their present moment, right? So in their present moment, they are wearing the jacket, right? They are experiencing the pressure of that deadline approaching. They are currently part of that event or party, right, or group or whatever that had a good turnout. So what happens is when you ask them a question, you make them feel like the expert. Another really important point to make here is something that I've subtly been doing in all of my example conversation starters so far, but I want to make sure that you are aware of it now and you're seeing it happen, right? I'm asking open-ended questions. Okay. And I'm sure you may have heard about this before, but open-ended questions are questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or a simple no. Okay. And unfortunately, those kinds of questions are, of course, the easiest to ask. So it may take some practice, but a good rule of thumb that I like to remember is focusing on starting the question with what or how compared to do you or did you, right? So for example, instead of asking, hey, did you like the movie, right? That's a question that could be answered with a simple yeah or no, right? So instead, I want you to try asking, hey, what did you think about the movie? Oh, see, so that's a much more open question, which encourages them to dive deeper into their opinion. But once you're getting a handle on getting conversation started and your small talk is starting to feel, a little bit better, that might be the time to start sharing some small vulnerabilities with that person, right? So overall, just like revealing just a little bit about yourself is going to encourage them to reveal something about themselves too. So for example, if you say, oh my gosh, I always get turned around in new places. Have you figured out this campus yet? I'm terrible at remembering names. Can you remind me of yours? You could even do it a little bit more positively, like almost like you're revealing a secret guilty pleasure, right? Like you could say, I actually love romantic comedies. Do you have a favorite one, right? I think when you approach it in that sort of tone and that sort of innocence, people really bond over that kind of honesty and vulnerability way more than they would bond over you saying the perfect thing, right? Being confident in those insecurities is how you get people to see your true confidence and your true personality. And ultimately, that's how you get them to trust you, because you're trusting them with those insecurities. And once you've exchanged, some of those basic pleasantries and you've shown a little vulnerability and you're starting to gain trust, at that point, it's probably safe to move past small talk completely. And you're now, it's okay to go into a little bit more deeper territory with your future conversations. So some examples of this would be like building upon things that they've mentioned previously. So like, you like hiking. I was just curious, what's your favorite trail around here? You can notice things that they keep talking about, like if it's, their family or their work or, their hobbies, like hiking or whatever. If they keep talking about those things, it clearly means that they like talking about it. So that gives you permission to focus on it. You could offer a short story, if you have one that relates, and as long as it doesn't, dominate over them, then it's fine. So now let's transition into talking about group dynamics and fitting into existing circles as a new person. When you're joining a group that already knows each other, I just want to make sure that you don't rush to insert yourself, right? Little fun fact about me, I have moved over 10 times in my life. And so I think one of the biggest regrets I had is that I did that. I inserted myself too much. So I just want you to take a minute to observe the group and figure out who leads the conversations, right? Figure out who sets the humor, figure out who, tends to, listen more than they speak, right? And all that matters because the dynamic of the group are the same, like those are the dynamics that you're going to need to understand in order to prevent you from unintentionally clashing with the group's rhythm, right? So it is totally okay. I'm giving you permission right now to just observe and listen. Just observe and listen. You don't need to come in guns blazing, full force. Here I am, look at me, right? When you don't need to. I don't want you to be afraid to contribute to the group, right? As long as you're contributing in a way that supports the group rather than competing with the group in a sense, right? So it is perfectly okay to speak up as much as you want, right? As much as you feel just sort of called to. I really want you guys to do that. And you don't have to worry about saying the perfect thing, because if they're the right people, it's not going to matter. You can offer encouragement or agreement, to show that you agree with what's being said, or that you feel the same way and that you relate to it. It can be done really subtly, just as other people are talking, just be like, yeah, huh. You don't have to sit there just like quiet and just observing, engage with them. And once you start talking in the group, I want to make sure that you start to balance the attention between individuals throughout the group, right? In a group, it's really easy to focus on one person, but sort of spreading that attention helps everyone feel more included if you can, right? And just, make eye contact is really all that I'm talking about, right? Just make eye contact with different members as you talk, if you can, right? If there's a specific leader of the group, that's one thing. or if they're the ones that like asked the original question or brought up the topic, right? That's a little bit different. But if you're sort of just talking to everyone at once, just do your best to make eye contact with as many people like as you can as you talk. And if you need to glance at the ground or the sky, just to sort of gather your thoughts, right? That's totally fine. That's totally fine, right? As long as you make eye contact every once in a while, it's perfectly okay. I also want you to use that subtle mirroring technique when you're in a group, right? And so this kind of relates back to what I was talking about earlier with, matching the energy, right? So if the conversation is high energy, right? And people are laughing, people are joking around, just keep what you say light, quick, and fun, right? And so if it's, same thing goes if it's serious. So if it's serious, just make sure what you say is a little more heartfelt, maybe a little slower, and whatever allows you to just stay focused and really listen during those moments, right? Be thoughtful. Groups tend to protect their identity, right? So matching their energy makes them view you as one of them instead of the outsider. And once you feel pretty good about the dynamics of the group, you can start focusing on strengthening those one-on-one connections within the group, because when joining a group of people, still like individual relationships matter the most. So just find chances to connect with members that you're noticing that you get along with a little bit more than the others in one-on-one settings outside of the group, right? So that's, again, like practically speaking, go grab lunch with them, right? Send them some follow-up messages. And once you start to develop those personal one-on-one relationships, the group as a whole will naturally feel more welcoming to you. All right, now it's time for part 3, deepening friendships. Now it's time to take those one-on-one connections and turn them into long-term friendships. Consistency is what builds depth in a relationship. Friends deepen when you're in contact a lot and you're a dependable person, right? If the relationship is sporadic or, there's a lot of one-sided efforts, it very rarely sustains, long-term. So just send a short, check-in message every so often that's like related to something that they've mentioned to you, right? If they've, they got a test, if they have a test coming up, like just send them a message. It's like, hey man, like how'd your exam go? Again, just make sure that your relationship is established enough to where you feel comfortable enough to do that. And you didn't just like meet the person that you're sending this text message to like a few days ago. I also don't want you to be afraid to send that first message either, just to figure out if they're interested in texting you one-on-one. That's totally fine. But if they're not, just, don't take it personally. As long as you don't push, right? You still have value as a person. But if you have a fairly, established relationship and you're starting to feel really comfortable with it, you may even get to the point where you feel comfortable maintaining like a rhythm of communication where you guys would have like a weekly or monthly call or like a regular, group activity that you guys do together, right? So as long as you just try to remember small details about conversations that you've had with them in the past and you follow up on those things later, that's really going to show reliability and that you care about them, which again will confirm trust. At this point, I think it's time to talk to them about your values, about your goals and your life, like outside of those environments, right? So that would be the time to invite them into a new context, right? So maybe introduce them to some of your other friends or bring them into some of the other hobbies that you're interested in, This is the time that the friendship will shift from something situational to something personal. So you can start with light vulnerabilities at first, right? Like embarrassing stories, small failures, and then over time, you can move into more meaningful struggles and hopes that you have and insecurities that you face. As long as you always sort of like match the level that they're comfortable staying in, just do your best to make sure that you're not, rushing to overshare something, because that'll sort of put pressure on them And I don't want you to make them feel like they have to share something that's equally as personal if they don't want to yet. And as with all relationships that, you go deeper and deeper into getting to know each other, handling conflict with care is very important, because even the strongest of relationships will have misunderstandings, and avoiding conflict, right? Just not talking about it. If there is a conflict, that's going to weaken trust, because if you have a problem, right, and you're in a conflict with one another, not talking about it is literally like a form of lying, right? That is you being in denial of the truth. So I just want to encourage you guys to always address issues directly but respectfully, and let them know that, how you felt when something happened. You can say like, man, I felt left out when you did this, instead of something more aggressive, like, you always do this, And of course, it goes the other way, right? Make sure to apologize if it's necessary when it's your fault as well, right? No excuses, right? Like, you should be willing to forgive small mistakes that they've made. And when you do that, you get to expect the same thing in return, right? And so then they will forgive the small mistakes that you make. Friendships, like any relationship at the end of the day, it's a two-way street, right? That's how you tell if a relationship or if a friendship that you have is actually healthy, because a lot of times you'll find that in unhealthy relationships, that inconsistency where there's a lot of one-sided tendencies, basically, where someone will forgive the other person 10 times over, right? But that same person won't give any forgiveness back. And that's not right. Healthy conflict resolution strengthens friendships. I really want to encourage you guys, try to fight to fix those friendships, because when you encounter conflict, you got to think of it like it's an opportunity to make that friendship stronger than years of time could ever grow that relationship. I mean, there have been times in my own life where a friendship goes sideways, right? But by choosing to fix that relationship and fight for being friends, right? That friendship has turned into something even greater than what we had before the conflict. And of course, there are always exceptions, but for most cases, I want to encourage people to try to resolve their issues the best they can. My hope is that you, throughout this process, you will find a relationship and a friendship in your life that will extend past time and circumstances to the point where it becomes this other level sense of like brotherhood, or this sense of sisterhood, to the point that you'll be able to reconnect with them. And it doesn't matter how many years have passed or how many miles have been put between the two of you, because as soon as you come back together, it's as if no time has passed at all and no distance was ever between you. And I'll admit, it took me a while to establish those kinds of relationships, but I promise you, they are out there for all of us, including you. You are worthy of love, connection, and friendships, and I hope this guide was helpful, and I can help bring that to all of you, right? And like I said at the beginning, please comment if you would like to have this guide sent to you. Be sure to drop a like, hit the notification bell, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I love you all, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.